Drop the just Facebook. It's clean.
What is that, like a...
You know what the Microsoft Surface is?
Mm-mm.
It's kind of like a tablet, but it's a full-on Windows 10 computer.
We just watched The Social Network today. What did you think of it, Craig?
Well, we're socializing about it.
That's Joey. He's a cutie, isn't he?
Look at that CGI smoke.
That's CGI smoke.
Zachary Conan.
Joey.
And Craig.
All right, we just watched The Social Network, 2010 film by the ridiculously loved David Fincher, and I think he actually deserves all of his praise. Unlike a few of our other quote-unquote modern masters, I think David Fincher has proven himself time and time again with films like Fight Club, Seven, Zodiac, and certainly The Social Network, which I not only consider his best film, but I herald this film. I've done it before on the channel. I call this film the best one of the 2010s of our current decade. I call this the greatest film of the decade, and that's what I personally believe, though I think I can make an objective argument for it as well, which will hopefully become more apparent throughout the analysis, because I think it's fully reflective of the modern ethos, and sadly completely expressive of the modern lack of pathos. I think that it's basically a great piece of the cultural zeitgeist, and I think it's really just emblematic of where we are as a nation. It's the best American film of the 2010s, I should specify. I think it examines the American character and coming into the digital age of America. So, coming into the digital age is a coming-of-age film for me. But
I feel like you exhausted half your vocabulary in that sentence.
oh, thank you. No, I got more. I have a multitude of different ways to say that I love this movie. That's most of what my vocabulary is. But what did you guys think of the movie, just as an initial response, knee-jerk reaction to it?
I liked it.
There we go.
Oh, man. Fucking start the presses, guys. I thought it was surprisingly really good. When I heard we were watching Social Network, I was like, okay, so we're slowing down the pace of what we normally watch. We're just going to watch something chill. Which, it was chill, but I didn't expect it to be as well done as it was.
Yeah, and I would say that I would add that to why I think it's such an important and significant film, because it is really accessible. But the themes are very complicated. Its main character is extremely complex, and it tells the story of one of the most significant movements in human culture of the last, 100 years. I mean, this is up there with the automobile.
Yeah, it did have a really weird feeling, and I'm at a loss for a good way to phrase that, but just watching a movie about something so impactful and so important that you remember all the details too because you lived through it. When they're talking about all these different websites and all these different programs that were popular then but are just dead now, it's just so weird because you see that this was set in 2003, which was only 15 years ago, and there's so much that's just gone, and it's because the internet moves that fast. And even in the movie, they were talking about something that just happened. They were on the phone. He was like, this is going to be on the internet within an hour. And it's the digital age is just so fast.
Although I think that's also a testament of how big of a deal Facebook was, because like you said, 15 years later, and it's still the biggest social network on the internet.
Oh, I'm pretty sure it's just grounded as being the like he said, it's like fashion. It's never going to be done.
And like Sean
That's very
Parker
cool.
says near the end, we used to live in caves, we lived in huts, we lived on the prairie, we lived on the plains, we lived in the cities, and we're going to live on the internet. And it's very interesting to me. What's one of the most remarkably fascinating concepts of the film is that the person who brought the human condition, the human character, human interaction to the internet is someone who is misanthropic, someone who just hates people, someone who just does not even understand how to build even the most basic relationship with those around him. And yet, what he created brought together people from all different varieties of life and different walks of life all over the globe. And yet, like another character says, he doesn't have 3 friends with which he could rub together to make a 4th. And by the end of the film, he's completely and utterly alone.
Yeah, literally the tagline for Facebook is bringing the world closer together or something like that.
Yep. And what I was most struck by, one of the most striking things about the film is the composition. And it does follow the same kind of David Fincher composition, which he set up really with... and Fight Club is really where he came into his own stylistically. The Seven is great, but Fight Club is really where he started to work with the yellows, the blues, monochromatic texturing. And by Zodiac and by The Social Network, he had it down to a complete science. What did you guys think of the general composition, but more specifically the colors and the lighting?
As far as that goes, I liked, I guess, the focus. It was definitely focused on the people, but technology always had a presence within the film, like at every single moment. And I thought that it was really well done because it's not on the nose, but you definitely know it's there.
Because there are aspects of tech noir, there are aspects of neo noir, there are aspects of chrome noir, but it's very much within the yellow and blue focused.
Yeah,
things.
I'd say
that's where Fincher wants your direction to look at. The character who is wearing blue or yellow, or at least is lighted with a yellow or blue backdrop, is kind of where he wants you to be looking.
Right. I would say overall it was just very like monochromatic.
Yes.
And I think it was to get us to focus more on what's like the dialogue and the emotions that they're feeling.
Exactly. And I love that you brought up the dialogue, because we shouldn't go any longer without saying that Aaron Sorkin's script was incredible.
Yeah.
That the writing in this film is extraordinary, and that Fincher and Sorkin is like the ultimate dream team. I love Sorkin's script for Steve Jobs as well, and Danny Boyle did great on that, but The Social Network is nearly masterful with its cross-cutting between the hearings, between the court hearings, or not even court hearings.
Yeah, it literally took me like 20 minutes into the film to realize what was going on.
Yeah.
I did not understand that it was cutting to the future.
Well, and not only was it cutting to the future, it was cutting to like a couple different like court cases being discussed.
Well, it was written so brilliantly that throughout those different court cases and those different hearings, those different testimonies, different parts of the information was being expressed to you through words. So, like, when you first see it happening, you might just think it's because of the Face Mash website and that, like, it's just kind of jarring. But later on, they reveal other things, like, your best friend is suing you for $250 million. And, like, it was all right. Like, it was just written so well that it gives you just I don't know, man. The pacing of this film is wonderful, and the exposition is wonderful. And Fincher is such a good visual storyteller for the most part, that even though Aaron Sorkin is known for being super verbose and just full of just a lot of words, I mean, they're very witty, very nice, but a lot of people say maybe he should be a playwright instead if he's that obsessed with the English language. Fincher is visual enough so that he adds these colors into his film, that his film's always cross-cutting within this kind of criss-cut montage or staccato editing, and it's always visually entertaining. Even though they're speaking 10,000 words a second, it's still visually very arresting, and there's always like a purpose to the visual nature of the film.
And I loved the parallel, because I felt like if that parallel between the two, I guess, chronologicals, if the two parallels of, you know, the court cases and the process of Facebook.
Well, I guess I shouldn't have said court case, because nothing ever actually happened in.
Well, yeah,
that's what I felt. I'm going to call them testimonials. I said the same thing earlier.
Yeah, because the whole point was to not go to court. But anyway,
Exactly.
Regardless, I thought the parallel helped a lot for the emotional aspect of the film, because it's like you know what's coming and you're anticipating an outcome that you like already understand. So the build up was very, very well done.
I definitely agree. I think it was perfect because you know that this guy is going to end up betraying Andrew Garfield's character. Everybody, yes, but the tone really shifts when Sean Parker is introduced as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say the pacing and everything was... it really made the movie very engaging.
Yes.
Especially because, honestly, like, they took, like, a subject matter where it could have just been very dry, because, you know, it's just people talking with lawyers and signing contracts, and intercut between, like, party scenes and stuff. But it kind of, like, took something that could have been in a documentary and, like, made it... like, it sucked you into the story. Like
I feel like this has, like, the true qualities of a real modern American classic, because I'm watching this story, which is a story of betrayal, where your main character certainly is a villain, but a really, you know, a complicated, complex villain who doesn't, like, kill anybody. He just basically betrays everyone who's ever meant anything to him in his life, and does everything in this film out of spite, out of a feeling of inferiority, out of feeling like he needs to constantly be proving himself to something or somebody, but he doesn't even know who he's trying to prove it to, because he doesn't have a high opinion of anybody except for a complete manipulator and con man. I do think...
Well, apparently he has a high opinion of Albright.
Yeah, but Albright's what sent him... He did all of... According to the film's narrative, Facebook was invented out of spite, out of being... broken up with by Albright.
Yeah, because that set the tone right there of him like wanting to prove himself.
Exactly, and that's a fascinating like payback. Is like, oh, you're gonna be mean to me. I'm gonna, oh god.
Yeah, because it started out with like one of the first lines where she was asking like which club is the easiest to get into.
Yeah,
and he took it like, what is that supposed to mean? Do you think I can?
And I love the writing is so fucking good, because in that first scene with Rooney Mara, he's like, when I get into these clubs or something, I'll show you around. I'll introduce you to all these people, and she says, "Oh, you would do that for me?" And then maybe 20 minutes later, the first time he meets the twins, they're like, "We're gonna get you in here, and we're gonna like do all this stuff for you, give you handouts," and he even says, "Oh, you would do that for me?" Yeah. So he's like, that is his window. Albright is his window into like how normal people act, and I think throughout the film he starts to understand how poorly he behaves as a human being. I mean, we don't see any major change except for him actually wanting a friend at the end of the film who is Albright. So she's very, very important. I just think I get like Godfather-esque betrayal qualities from this film, like the Fredo kiss is to me equal to the part of The Social Network where Zuckerberg coaxes Eduardo out to basically get a bullet in the back of his head, you know, to sign away his entire rights to the company, all of his stocks. I think this film is incredibly complicated, but specifically within the context of what we normally define as an American classic, because it has that ultimate betrayal, it has that really complicated betrayal, but it's a subtle and a nuanced betrayal as well. And I think The Social Network is just phenomenal at expressing that. What did you guys think of the Mark Zuckerberg character? And we'll go into the performances later, but just as a character, as your main character of the film, do you consider him a villain, or do you consider him just completely misguided, or how do you see Mark Zuckerberg in this film?
Well, it's interesting because he kind of is painted as a villain, I'd say, through like the whole movie pretty much. Because right off the bat, you're introduced to him being an asshole to his girlfriend.
Yeah.
And then he just kind of gets worse as the movie goes on. But then in the final scene...
Rashida Jones.
Yes. She tells him that, I don't think you're an asshole, I think you're just trying really hard to be one.
I think that's a great final line, because I think that's speaking to the American character. I mean, that's my view of humanity, at least currently, is that like we're not all a bunch of assholes, but we're trying just desperately to be as mean or selfish as possible.
Yeah.
That we actually want to be good people, but we feel like we have a target on our back, or we feel like we're just inferior on a massive scale, so we act out in spite. And just as a side note, I love Rashida Jones in this movie. I thought she was fantastic. But yeah, what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, basically at the beginning of the movie, I really wanted to punch him in the face, but at the end of the movie, I was pretty empathetical with him. or empathetic with him.
I wanted to punch him nonstop. I still wanted to punch him in the face at the end of the film, but
Yeah, no, the ending didn't make me like him anymore. But
no. But what I think it did was maybe make him not like himself, but like give himself some sort of credit or some sort of something. Now, I know he's massively egotistical, but he obviously has a very, very small view of himself as an actual like person within this shared experience of living.
He uses his success as a cover-up for how he feels about himself.
Yeah. I think that, like, what do you think that represents, him sending out the friend request to Albright? I think that's him saying, like, he actually wants to build a relationship with somebody, like just a friendship with somebody. What do you think that signifies, since they choose to leave it on that?
Well, it's funny because one of the scenes, the one where he's in the club and making, like, Sean Parker's, like, trying to convince him...
That's a great scene.
To go on 2 continents and make the deals and all that shit, and Zuckerberg is like, do you still think about that girl that cost you to create
Napster? That's the part that, like, gets you, man.
And then and he was kind of like, no, of course not, I don't think about it.
You're like, no, what? You got the wrong part of my parable. Like,
yeah, and then so then it ends with, after he's so successful, he makes the million subscribers, or not subscribers, million users on Facebook. You know, he gets everything he wants, and then, you know, she's still all he...
Well, she's like the only part that keeps him connected to this human experience, and him saying that, you know, that she is the thing that is always on his mind.
Yeah.
Always there on his mind. And I love that scene. We should still focus on the themes, but we moved away from the composition without mentioning the sound design, which is incredible, which is like...
shout out to Trent Reznor.
Trent Reznor was great at his score for the most part. We can go into that one scene later that kind of feels out of place, but it really doesn't affect my enjoyment of the film.
That also wasn't his music, so...
He made the score. He remixed that song.
Oh, true.
We'll get into it later. But no, it's really quick. The sound design was really good. Craig brought up it felt like a minimalism, and I brought up it felt like a trying to be neo-realist. You would have just a lot of natural sounds. It would add in the sounds of air conditioning in the background, or the sound of the flickering light, or at the scene we were talking about at the club, they literally have to yell over the fucking music.
What was fantastic is it was both, like, I don't know how they did it. It was really, really good sound mixing, because the music was too loud, but you could hear every single word they said without a problem.
Exactly. And if you see behind the scenes, they're recording that, they're filming that, and they're yelling at each other with no sound, of course, in the background. That's all added in post. And it's just brilliant that Fincher had, like, the forethought to do that with every scene too, where there is some sort of outside noise. Brilliant sound design. I think that sound design's incredible, but to get back to that scene and to Joey's point, and to not leave the themes right away, during that scene, Justin Timberlake tells the story of how the founder of Victoria's Secret committed suicide, and to which Mark Zuckerberg responds with, "Is this a parable?" So, and I think he's also asking it for the audience's sake, because now the audience, you put it in their minds, and now they're thinking it, is this film itself a parable? Which his next line is about, do you ever think about that girl? So that has to be part of the main story of a parable. But if this film was to teach a lesson to a society, what lesson would you get out of this film? If it was trying to warn you in some way, what would you get from it?
I don't know if it was trying to warn me so much as if it was just trying to tell an interesting story. Because, like, the one phrase you can get out of this movie is the guy who connected so many people doesn't have any connections. And it's like, or you could word that a lot better, but still, nonetheless, it's like, he literally created a website to make friends on, and he has no friends.
But I think it was certainly trying to teach you a story, though, or else he wouldn't have lines like, is this a parable? Or the film would be incredibly realistic, and there's... Yeah. I really don't care about this film as, like, a historical document or as a document of historicity. Right. I see it as a parable, as a modern, like, myth almost.
Yeah,
as
I'm
a
sure there
modern.
was some embellishments.
I'm sure it's all embellishments. It's Aaron Sorkin, like the writer of the West Wing here. Like I'm
Yeah.
sure it's mostly embellishments, but that doesn't take away from it for me at all. Because I do believe he was trying to express something. So if we take even just Craig's, basic takeaway of it, of the guy who invented Facebook doesn't have any friends, there's a logical lesson that you could get from that. And what mattered the most to this guy who invented Facebook was his failed relationship with this woman and the words that she said to him. And he spent the entire movie in manifest destiny almost, becoming everything that she said and getting worse and worse and worse.
Yep.
Becoming the villain of his own life. What did you think of Jesse Eisenberg's performance? Because I thought he was absolutely incredible.
Amazing. Fantastic. Like, my favorite part of his performance was his physical
Had a lot of facial tics in this that were incredible. The way he grimaces away, because the emotionality of the character is very limited on purpose. He doesn't show a whole lot of emotion, and it's all done with the way he moves his face and his facial muscles.
So, against my own interest, I have seen a lot of Jesse Eisenberg movies, and I would say he honestly is not that great of an actor. I feel like he does have kind of a limited range, and he is really close to the same in almost every
I agree
movie
with
I've
you that he
seen him
has
in.
a limited range, but this film is the best at expressing that range.
Yeah, I would say that it wasn't even because he's a good actor. I think it was a good director that was able to frame him in such a way. I think they picked the right actor to portray what they were going for.
Exactly. I think that it's more than just I think he is a good actor, but I don't think anyone's figured out how to use him like David Fincher did. They saw all the different. They saw his skill set and went, "This applies so much to this character," and we could also mine a bit more that these other comedy films, other neurotic performances, haven't been able to get out of him.
Yeah,
and I think that he stepped up to the plate and did wonderfully. This was the role he was born to play, and I know he just plays the same kind of role. And when he steps out of his comfort zone, it's kind of detrimental.
Yeah, but
this film is really wonderful. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh no, that's pretty much just what I was going for.
I would argue that. I can agree that the director picked the right person for the role and definitely enhanced his character. But I would definitely argue that Jesse Eisenberg was fantastic on his own right.
Mm-hmm.
Because even when he's not the focus of the scene, he's just so in character.
Yes.
It's
fantastic
because
I would say all the main characters accomplish that.
Yeah, but I think that Jesse Eisenberg was miles ahead of everybody else in this movie. I really do think so, because I believe
so many people were forgettable, and it's not just because they were side characters or anything like that. It's just
he was so believable in this movie that if I met him in real life, I would just subconsciously think that he's like this character, because he brought him to life so well for me, so believably, that I believe that not only is this character real, but that the actor is absorbed by this guy.
Because Justin Timberlake did a fine job, but I feel like there's hundreds of actors that could have done just as good. I don't think Jesse Eisenberg could have been replaced in this movie.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. I don't really think so either, but I think it was that he just happened to be a good fit for what he's capable of.
It's okay. We can disagree. No,
it's okay
fine.
to be wrong.
Yeah, so I'm glad you're.
We don't disagree entirely. We're both saying he does a great job.
Yeah,
we're just arguing at the velocity of his greatness. Really, we're just arguing about whether or not. I think I would credit Jesse Eisenberg with almost 100% of his work in this, and of course the script is phenomenal. When you're saying certain lines and they just flow off the page that well, everybody's gonna be really good. Everything is so good about this movie, but still, him when he's not saying anything, that's what makes me say he's so great, because he has to show emotionality when he's not saying anything, when he's grimacing and looking.
I guess what I'm saying is I feel like a lot of the characterization is just how he is
But is that maybe because he's such a good actor? I've never seen him in an interview. He might be a totally different person.
Yeah,
that's so weird.
I've seen him in interviews, and
he's the same.
So not exactly the same, but what you were saying about how they were kind of this is the right guy, and they're able to like even mine some
mine
more.
a lot more.
So
I mean, I'd have to look at some other stuff. I'm pretty sure I've seen at least 2 other films that he's been in, but a big argument for me that says an actor is a great actor is if I can watch the movie and forget who the actor is.
That is true. Yeah.
I never once didn't recognize, like, I always knew who Andrew Garfield was. I was like, that's Andrew Garfield on the screen. But there was plenty of times where looking at Jesse Eisenberg, I just didn't think about Jesse Eisenberg. It was only Mark Zuckerberg.
I'm with you, Craig, on this one. I got lost in this performance. Jesse Eisenberg did so well, but let me like complete it with a backhanded thing. I've never seen him do anything this well ever again. And every other movie,
that's what I'm trying to say.
In every other movie, I see Jesse Eisenberg. Yeah, but you started it with saying that it's the director's credit, and I'm like, no, man, Jesse Eisenberg killed it.
I mean, he did great, but I'm still giving more credit to the director than to Jesse Eisenberg.
And that's where we can part on here. But let's not. We've spent a while on Jesse.
Yeah, let's not get too stuck on it.
Andrew Garfield was very good. Let's move on to him. What do you think about Eduard? Not only, let's go to him because he spent a while on Mark. What do you think of Eduardo Savarino? You guys also didn't say anything about the betrayal too much. Talk about Eduardo as a character and Andrew Garfield as a performer here, because I thought he was very good too.
I think, as far as the characters go, I think a lot of what happened was because Mark Zuckerberg started to feel that he was being slightly betrayed by Eduardo, almost as if Eduardo didn't believe in the company.
Well, I also felt
But
he was
then it
being
was-
slighted because Eduardo was getting into that elite club that the Phoenix Club that he couldn't
Yes.
get into, and
Yeah.
he was like, "Well, I'm better than him. I'm smarter than him. I'm cooler than him." He's just attractive and from a rich family because they never talk about Zuckerberg's family in this.
No.
They talk about everyone else's family, and so does Zuckerberg himself because he
That's
needs to
kind of-
remind everyone how wealthy they are.
Actually, that's pretty great to point out because it's like you're showing all his quote-unquote enemies, or not quote-unquote, why did I say it like that? But his enemies, and I can't think. Sorry.
Well, I mean, I guess that makes sense because a lot of these people who are enemies were like associates and friends turned
It's
like
just quote-unquote makes me think that someone else said it and no one actually ever said
They
it.
were all
But-
people that Zuckerberg thought had something that he lacked.
But what's fantastic is the movie kind of showcases that without making it so obvious, because it never like says, "Oh, Mark Zuckerberg doesn't have these things." It's more along the lines placing Mark Zuckerberg next to all these people who do have these things.
So what is it about Sean Parker? And it is greatly ironic that Justin Timberlake is playing the man who basically brought down the music industry at 19 years old. I think that's deeply ironic. And Justin Timberlake was fine, but what do you think?
I think the reason he saw him so much as like a role model
Exactly that's
is
what I'm saying.
because he saw a future self in the character, because this guy came from nothing and made such a large impact on the
There's
music
also the
industry.
weird like punk rock attitude that Parker had about bringing down big corporations that
Yeah,
Zuckerberg
yeah.
also expresses, but Zuckerberg doesn't have a goal with it. Like he
Yeah.
doesn't want advertisers, but not for reasons he can articulate. He needs Sean Parker to do that for him. He created a website before FaceMash, before the Facebook, and he gave it away for free instead of selling it to Microsoft, and he just shrugs like, I don't know why not? Like I don't want to say rebel without a cause, but he had no purpose in being as rebellious as he was. It was almost like
Yeah.
a stick on his shoulder, like he wants to be like all of these rich people, but he more so wants them to pay in some way
Mhm.
as well, but not for any sort of reason he can verbalize, and the film does not vocalize any reasoning for it. And Sean Parker, I think it's greatly tragic that Zuckerberg falls so deeply under his wing, under his spell, under his romance. And Justin Timberlake is a really charismatic dude, and that's great
Mhm.
casting, actually.
yeah.
I loved him as the great manipulator. Joey, what did you think Zuckerberg saw in Sean Parker that he didn't see in any of the other that we meet? Like, he loved that dude, basically sucking his dick.
I would say because he definitely did see something that he was aspiring to be, of course, but also had like the charisma and ability to talk to people that he lacked.
Exactly. Okay, that's his idealized form of himself.
Yeah.
That's him if he actually knew how to interact with human beings.
You know what's fantastic? That I just
But even
thought of?
but even that role model is a fake role model of like masculinity as well, because
Right.
he's too under his spell, or he just doesn't understand human behavior enough to see what Eduardo sees in him, this fake con artist.
Right.
And Eisenberg's like thinking, no, this is the way I would act, because he's got all these women, got all this money, he's got everything everyone wants, and like no one judges him.
There's another way to look at it too. Is there's also the possibility that he saw him as a means to an end. Like maybe he was convinced that if he brought this guy on, it would just further his success, which it did, and then he kind of just cast him aside as soon as he didn't need it.
Oh, I don't think so at all. I don't think so at all. I think the film and the script and everything about Eisenberg's performance definitely drew home the fact that he was completely, like, just taken away with this guy.
Yeah.
And
Well,
at the
I
end,
think-
when like Justin Timberlake does get in trouble, he's not happy when he has to say "you're gone" too, because he just
Yeah.
lost Eduardo. But at that moment, he's really good at subtlety in that performance. Because remember when Justin Timberlake's like, "Do you think it's Eduardo? You think he's who did this? He's who called the cops?" And Jesse Eisenberg's like, "No, I don't think it's him," because he's like realizing that
Yeah.
this was the guy I put my chips on. This was
Yeah.
the guy I thought was better than my best friend,
Right.
and this is what he does.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think it's actually illustrated like kind of clearly about him being enamored with Sean.
Yeah.
Because the scene before, he's in the meeting with like another like possible like investor or whatever.
Hey.
Yeah. And he like could not like give a shit, even though this guy could potentially
Exactly.
like help him. In
That
some
guy would
way.
have the same value if he wanted to use Sean.
That's
there was
true.
one person
That's
being
fair.
used, and it was
Yeah.
Zuckerberg.
Yeah, I think he was definitely enamored by like the charisma, and and he's like young, and did pretty much the same thing that he was aiming to do and accomplish.
Absolutely.
Although it is weirdly hinted at the end of the movie that he did possibly set up Sean. So it's almost
Well,
like
only because it's in our minds now.
so, but I think there was like genuine like infatuation with him.
Yes.
But I think just like everyone else he cared about in the movie, at some point he just saw them as disposable.
That added to the villainy, of course, because
Yeah.
even the person he's so enamored with, he found it easy to sacrifice that person. I'm not saying it wasn't hard. I'm saying he wasn't happy about it.
Yeah, right.
Not like he was happy with getting rid of Eduardo, although I do think he was a lot more vindictive because he brought him
Yeah.
out there. He tricked him into going out there.
He was like more vindictive, but it also seemed like you could see an even stronger conflict with it because he like realizes like,
Yeah.
wow, I just completely fucked over
Absolutely.
the only person who actually gave a shit about me.
I didn't get your opinions on Garfield's performance overall. How did you think he did in the movie?
I did pretty great. Or I did. Blah, blah, blah.
You
I
did
think
really
he-
good, Andrew
yeah,
Garfield.
yeah.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I think he did pretty great. I would say he was definitely very complimentary to the Zuckerberg character.
They were really good on screen
Yeah,
together.
the chemistry they had was great. I would say that his timing was really great. I mean, honestly, like I know I said the shit about Eisenberg earlier, but I would say like both of they had really great timing. Because like even if you're given like a great script, you have to be able to keep up with the pace of it, which I think they
and I think
accomplished.
that Garfield scene is so intense where he confronts Eisenberg at the end and smashes his laptop. That is so intense. Garfield was so good there.
And I love the scene where he like does the fake out punch with
Me too. I'm glad he got that.
yeah.
I'm glad he got that little like last like you
Yeah.
know what? I feel tall standing next to you,
Yeah.
Sean. You know, like I feel good about it. And I love Sean finally looking like a weak motherfucker. Actually, that's what's really great about the script and the film too, because not only does he look weak there, because for the rest of the movie he's kind of untouchable. He's cool
Yeah.
as fuck. He's a
Yeah.
prankster, man.
Yeah.
But then that scene happens and he flinches, and then that gives the note to the audience like, oh, this guy's a coward.
Yeah.
Like, I know he's a coward con artist already, but he's a coward. And then at the party, he pulls out like
Yeah.
an EpiPen and a fucking inhaler. Like, he's falling apart.
Yeah.
Like, this is all a facade.
Mhm.
Like, those are like literal metaphors of like the guy is actually secretly crumbling away, and so is his integrity and his reputation.
Yeah,
And it's
I
so
think we even
perfect.
see him use the inhaler calling from
Calling
the
from
jail.
the jail because he's completely ruined at that point.
Yeah.
And that's a fascinating way to express a character's
Yeah,
downfall
'cause
like that.
They
And
just expose
but
him.
that scene with Andrew Garfield breaking the laptop is so good because Jesse Eisenberg can't say a word, and you're just looking at his face and like. And
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of pathos in that because he looks like he definitely feels bad.
Yeah.
It's not just about being confronted, but it looks like,
Yeah.
you know.
I
It's like what he says to the twins earlier, like, they're not suing me because I stole their idea or something. They're suing me because like they're not getting what they wanted.
Yeah, they've always had everything handed to them.
Exactly, and now he's being fed like really hard pills to swallow himself. Like someone's actually telling him he's a villain again. It's the same expression he had when Rooney Mara's Albright was breaking him down in the first scene. It's like someone actually looking into his character and being like, "No, you're a terrible fucking person."
Yeah.
Craig, any thoughts on that scene? Because that scene is like super intense for me.
It was fantastic. I think it was the defining turning point in the movie. It was once, like I said, the parallel in the movie. That's when the parallels kind of like cross paths. So it's pretty great. It was, like I said, it's like you know what's going to happen, and you're just watching all the build up to what you know is going to happen, and then that's the climax. So it's like it's really good payoff.
Well, it was exciting for me because I didn't know what the fuck was going to happen. I don't know anything about Facebook or Mark Zuckerberg, so...
Well, I'm saying...
Well, you know Zuckerberg's still the founder, so you know he
Yeah.
didn't lose those cases.
Well, the thing is that the parallel is that they're working together to create Facebook, and then it
Right.
flips over to scenes of them suing him.
Yeah.
And it's like, so you know what the outcome's going to be overall, and then you get the payoff of him just getting fucked over on those contracts and then like slamming his laptop down
and signing those contracts. That scene is shot with the elegance of like a Francis Ford Coppola mob hit, man.
Yeah.
Because like it doesn't even need this. The way that it's cross-cut and the way that they tell you what it actually is, because he enters in the room, you're like, what's this? What's this? And then it cuts out to outside of the room to the natural sound design or the minimalist sound design, and then you can't hear what's being explained to him, and then they go back to the testimony, and it's repeat the question again. Like, oh, it's such a bad question. You want me to say it twice? And like, we don't know what it is yet. We don't know what it is yet. And then you hear it in the most emotionless tone possible because it's the most emotionless tacit betrayal that you could do. We hear it from the fucking stenographer, the one who writes down everything that's being spoken at the testimonial. She reads it back so emotionlessly, like, did you know you were signing your own death certificate or something? And it's like,
that was
so well done.
That was definitely like the pin drop moment.
Exactly. So well done.
Like I love that it honestly, I would say the monotone of her voice matches the monochromatic palette of the film altogether, and it basically makes the lines like that more impactful.
Absolutely. Like, holy shit, just cinema, man. Fucking cinema. So good, you guys. All right.
Also, I love Brenda's song.
Brenda's song, okay, within our age group, who does not love Brenda's song, okay?
Honestly, Wendy Wu forever.
Honestly, cute Asians forever. I guess now would just be a good time to talk about Trent Reznor's score, which for the most part is really good. I love the opening credits. It really lays down that, what kind of genre would you call it? Because it was ambient techno music.
Yeah, no, it was like a dark ambient, like it made you feel like you're in a computer, realness.
Exactly.
It really reminded me of the time that it was put in, like the
early 2000s.
The early 2000s, where it's like technology was so interesting.
Yeah, Trent Reznor was definitely a perfect pick because that's when Nine Inch Nails was like the biggest. Was like around that time. But
it was also really well done because as where technology was a huge point of this film, it was not the focus. The focus was on the people. so it was great that like the music was there and it was present and it fit the vibe that it needed to fit, but it didn't take the forefront at all.
Yeah, it just created the mood.
Mm-hmm.
Just like everything, like the color palette, like complemented with the soundtrack to just like make a mood board for the dialogue.
Exactly. The motherboard or mood board of this film is just incredible. But and I do think it's composed incredibly well. There is one scene in particular, or one sequence really, that all of us had our own kind of problems with. It's actually the scene where, because it's just inconsistent, because it kind of betrays the tone or the language set up by Fincher throughout the rest of the film. It is the race in England with the twins as they lose the race. We all have our own criticisms of it, and I'll go first just really succinctly. I think that why it doesn't affect my enjoyment of the film at all. I want to preface it with that. I think it's just, it feels out of place, and for very specific reasons. I think the one for me is that it's the only scene in the movie that is completely visual, that it's a scene of action, and every other scene is dialogue driven and dialogue heavy. And this is the one scene where Fincher had to just express action. And that in and of itself is inconsistent with the rest of the film, but also Joey and then Craig will go into their criticisms of it as well, and then show you how it is kind of tonally inconsistent. You have to have it in the movie, but you possibly could have done it differently.
Yeah, I guess it was, like you said, like it was just a pure action sequence. It was... just everything about it was kind of jarring because, like, that was probably the one point in the movie where the color palette was kind of different.
Yes.
Now, I would say that wasn't out of character for Fincher because it had, like, the blues and the reds, which he's used, like, in other films, like Seven and things like that. So, like, where there's, like, really bright contrasting colors instead of, like, dark monochromatic. So it wasn't out of character for Fincher, but it was kind of weird when you contrast it with the yellows and blues with the rest of the film. But I guess like, looking back, I feel like if I watched the movie again, it wouldn't bother me as much because it's setting up that pivotal moment of where the twins find out that Facebook has now went to another continent.
Exactly.
And they not only just, like, because the whole movie, like, for, like, the past hour, you keep hearing references to their, like, physical prowess, and then it shows them losing, like, horribly, like, coming so close and having this awful, awful defeat where they almost win, but they don't, in the physical realm, and then moments later they lose intellectually as well.
Exactly.
So,
you can't remove the scene because it shows them losing both their body and their mind.
Right. I guess my only critique is that just the racing scene itself just kind of lasted a little too long for me.
I think it was a bit overcomposed because a lot of the shots were a bit too trendy for 2010. Like, it was almost like someone with a GoPro, like, biking down the street in an old YouTube video. It was a bit too overcomposed. Just that one scene lacked nuance, but I don't know if Fincher was like, well, this is my one scene of action, and music has to be very loud, have to be very on the nose. They have to know we're in England.
Yeah.
What did you think, Craig?
I think the problem is that when we were watching it, I said out loud, I was like, wow, this was a horrible scene. And I guess that was badly worded because as a standalone scene, it's not horribly done. It's just horribly placed. There's too much emphasis on what's going on. It's like, sure, I understand why it needs to be in the film, but it doesn't need to be put in such an important light, I guess. Like, it doesn't need to look as important as it is. We need to understand the context, but we don't... It was almost like if we were watching a movie about these guys training, and then we finally get to this big tournament that they've been talking about, and then they lose just by a little bit. And it's like, that's what the scene felt like, but that's not what the scene was actually supposed to do. So that's why I said it was horrible, because it's horribly placed. It had nothing to do with what previously happened.
Yes, it did. It had everything to do with the scene
The
that
way-
previously happened about them moving to England and bringing Facebook across the sea.
Yeah, because the scene right before it was them being in the
I'm
club
talking about literally just the part with the loud music and them in the boat. That had no need to feel as important as it was. Because it's like, we don't actually care about their efforts.
I guess, well, it's funny because we talked about the turning point being like Andrew Garfield as Eduardo.
That's not the turning point. That's the climax of the film.
Yeah, so
opinion.
maybe, I guess this actually could have been
Yeah.
considered the turning point. Maybe that's why it's so...
Well, I consider
dramatic,
the turning
but-
point the hour in when Sean Parker shows up. That's the turning point, really, thematically and narratively.
That is true.
This is just a bomb. This is just a bomb that went off. And though we all think that the scene has its own compositional flaws, it doesn't detract from the overall enjoyment of the picture.
No, it just threw me off.
Yeah, I would say that, honestly, if I, like, upon a second viewing, like I said, I don't think the scene would really bother me as much. It was just, like... It was just so different than the rest of the movie up until that point.
Mm-hmm.
It was just kind of like jarring.
But
it also kind of like Craig at one point had said it felt like we were watching like a BBC special.
It's true.
But I guess he really was like trying to make it on the nose with like, you're in England now, like
exactly.
So
I honestly thought that the camera was eventually going to pull out from two people watching TV or something, because it was so out of place that I felt that was the only way they'd be able to segue back into the like overall vibe of the movie.
Well, let's show the movie some respect now. What was your favorite scene in the movie?
My favorite scene in the movie was actually when they were in the club. That was fantastic.
That was so well done, yeah.
I really liked seeing Brenda's song set shit on fire.
That was really good too. That's actually probably that's not my favorite scene, but that's my second favorite scene because it's cross-cut with Jesse Eisenberg doing the whole like really nice, happy betrayal. Like, don't worry, it's okay. Just come down here. Yeah, and then we have papers to sign.
I would say that if I wanted to take a still frame from that movie and hang it on my wall, it would be the scene where the trash can's on fire with the cell phone in front of it. That was really...
That's just poetic. Like, that's symbolism right there.
Great.
It's amazing.
It was great.
And it's foreshadowing, too. My favorite scene is actually the final scene between Rashida Jones and Jesse Eisenberg. I think that's just an incredible
refresh.
Incredible way to end that film, and the dialogue to each other. Oh my god, that scene kills me every time I watch it. It's good that your final scene kills you.
Yeah, no, I would agree that probably is my favorite scene because you see Zuckerberg being like kind of like cocky like during these testimonials, like he's like really like just throwing everything back at these lawyers, and he really has this frame of mind that he's untouchable. Like, he even says, like, to, like, the twins, like, y'all can't even, like, come close to, like, the smarts or the talent or the capability of the people that I have working on Facebook right now. And when Rashida Jones' character, I forgot the character's name, but she comes back and pretty much tells him, like, we're going to settle for a non-disclosure agreement, and he was like in shock. He's like he thought they weren't going to get anything, and then she explains how he viewed him, that he has no idea how to like interact with people. He's very like unsympathetic, and the jury, which is kind of like the viewers at that point, are not going to side with him. They're gonna see him up on that podium, and they're gonna like hear what everybody else has to say, and that they're like basically he's going to get screwed over. And
I think that the relationship that exists between Marilyn Delpy, whatever, Rashida Jones is what I'm going to call her because that's how I know her. Rashida Jones and Jesse Eisenberg's relationship, how it's built throughout that movie, is brilliantly composed.
Yeah,
because it starts from I think the reason why Zuckerberg is nice to her at the end is because she was nice to him first and fed his ego. The first lines that she speaks to him during the testimonials is like, "Wow, you got 2,200 2,200 whatever members and a whatever."
Yeah,
and he's like, "No,
22,000." And she's like, "Wow,
wow."
Yeah,
you know, so like, but she understands human nature, and she has to feed the ego in order to try to get into you. Like, you're not an asshole, but you're trying so hard to be, man.
Yeah, and I think she really like ties all the ends together very nicely because she, because she pretty much like reveals to us like she was like, you know, you're the one that like set up Eduardo. You're the one that had it published in the paper about him being an animal abuser. And he was like, you can't prove that or whatever, like, you know, and she was like, it doesn't matter. The juries are thinking about it.
Yeah.
So.
And you could have done it to Sean Parker, too. Doesn't matter if you did or not.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Brilliant movie. Anybody have any final thoughts, Craig?
Join Facebook.
That's a good final thought. Joey, what are your final thoughts?
Delete your Facebook, burn your computer, and go live out in the wilderness.
And then about a week later, get a new computer and rejoin Facebook.
My final thoughts is a move to Twitter.
Oh, yeah, I've been meaning to do that. Fuck Zuckerberg.
No, it's all toxic. It's all toxic. And,
I'm on all of them.
And don't fuck. And it's not about hating Zuckerberg. It's about... It's about.
Oh
that,
no, I meant like literally.
It's about that
part
of
Zuckerberg.
We gotta be careful, or else we're gonna get zucked.
It's about that part of the modern human condition that is just getting stronger and stronger, and more detached and dispossessed.
Yeah, I would say it's interesting because there was like very heavy themes of like isolation and like desire and need for like human contact, and like one of the biggest critiques of like the internet age and like social networking is that everyone's, you know, on their phones, like everyone's, like you see like the edgy art of like people scrolling on their phones and they look like zombies, but like it like there is like a little bit of a truth to like nowadays that a lot of people, even though they're very active on social media, like feel lonelier than ever.
Absolutely, and
that's illustrated in the final scene.
Absolutely, It works on me really well. I think it's the best film made in the last 10 years. I don't really think there's any contest for it because, hopefully we've expressed during this discussion, this is a film that is about being mammoth in its importance and being emblematic of strikingly modern and contemporary themes and problems with youth, with the digital age, and coming into it in poor ways.
Yeah, I would say the best movie of the 2010s would be Toy Story 3, actually.
That's the end of the video.
Tune in next week, guys, where we talk about Toy Story 3. I'm kidding. But thanks a lot for listening. I'm Zachary Conan.
I'm Joey.
And
he's a fucking idiot.
Is that going to get written over now?
Yeah, it is. But for those that stuck around a bit too long... I did want to just bring up one more thing me and Joey did about a scene where it's revealed during the conversation where he's talking to Sean Parker from prison, and it reveals that like what he bought in the box that he didn't want to show him was a bunch of business cards that say "I'm the CEO, bitch" or "I'm CEO, bitch." Me and Joey just thought that was a really good, a really good moment, and I thought it was brilliant that he didn't want to show it to Parker after the conflict or what that happened with Eduardo. I thought that was really like a tender moment too, of like he was kind of ashamed all of a sudden of his relationship with Sean Parker, and then when he's talking to Sean Parker, he's looking at that card and seeing the emptiness that is on that card, really. The superficiality of what he wanted. Wanted to say that. We always think of good things to say the second we press stop, so we just really wanted to say that. Thanks for letting us say that.